Klal Yisrael sustained a great loss yesterday with the patira of Hagoyin Fievel Cohen Shlita, the author of the Bari Shulchan, who anybody who learns halacha and wants to have an understanding of the final psak will almost inevitably turn to his sefer, Bari Shulchan. I was privileged 13 years ago to hear the Rav speak in a very dramatic fashion. He spoke about the time before Moshiach comes and what will the world look like and how it will be. And he said the following observation, which is really connected to the to this week's parsha. At the end of Parshas Chayesar, the last pasuk, the Torah says, "In front of all of his brothers he fell." It's talking about Yishmael. Yishmael fell in front of all his brothers. It means that he passed away. And we find that the start of Parshas told us, the very first pasuk says, "Eila told us Yitzchak." These are the descendants of Yitzchak. The Baal Turim in this pasuk explains that in the end of days, when Yishmael will fall for the Jewish people, then Melech Moshiach will sprout forth from the descendants of Yitzchak. There's a direct connection between the fall of Yishmael and the rise of Yitzchak. So, Fievel Cohen asked, we know that there are four exiles, there are four Guluses. We know that there are four Guluses, and the last one is Guz El Edom. That's one we're in now, and that has been going on almost 2,000 years. So we're right now in the midst of Gulus Edom. So why are we focusing on the fall of Yishmael? Seemingly, the focus should be on the fall of Edom, not the fall of Yishmael. So Rashi points out on this pasuk, in front of all his brothers he fell. He explains that as long as Avram was alive, Yishmael dwelled in peace. When Avram passed away, then Yishmael falls. So you have to understand as well, what is the connection between Avram's death and Yishmael's falling? How can we understand this? So the explanation is as follows. We find in parts of Vayishlach, that Edom was, the Torah told us Edom had a grasp on the land of Edom, right? Edom had a grasp on Edom, but it doesn't say that Yishmael had a portion in the land of Eretz Yisrael. So what's the difference between Edom, who had a hold on their land, and Yishmael, who did not necessarily have a portion of land? So we find that the Torah says that when Sarah threw out Yishmael from their house, from their home, that Hashem agreed to it. He said, Tishma l'koilai. Everything that Sarah says, you should listen to. In fact, Chazal tell us that Sarah was greater in prophecy than Yishmael, than Avram. And we know that even though Yishmael lives in Eretz Yisrael, they're allowed to live here because they have bris milah. Bris milah is what allows them to be here in Eretz Yisrael. But they can't have a chelik in Eretz Yisrael. There's a difference between Klal Yisrael and between Yishmael. Klal Yisrael is a chelik in Eretz Yisrael, but since Yishmael was thrown out, they can't have a chelik in Eretz Yisrael. Right? Now, in Parshas Vayishlach, the Torah says about Esav, that Esav, it's in Parak Lamed Vav, Pasuk Vav, that Esav left the land of Yaakov. Right? Now, why was that? It's not possible to inherit Eretz Yisrael. We know that without Yisurim. We know that three things are nicknamed Yisurim. The Gemara in Brachas tells us there's just three things which are required with Yisurim, with tribulations, with difficulties. And that's Torah, Olam Haba, and Eretz Yisrael. In order to be Cohen Eretz Yisrael, in order to acquire Eretz Yisrael, you need to have difficulties. And as a nation to acquire Eretz Yisrael, we need great difficulties. We had to go through the Gullus. In order for the Jewish people to inherit Eretz Yisrael, we had to go through a bitter Gullus. Yaakov was willing to do that. Esav wasn't. Right? And therefore, this is why the children of Yaakov inherited Eretz Yisrael, and the children of Esav did not, or Yishmael, as it were. Right? Now, we find halacha in Hilchas conversion, Hilchas Geras. The Gemara says in Yavamas, Daf Mem Zayin Amud Aleph, that when a non-Jew comes to convert, we tell him some of the mitzvahs of Torah, we tell him the difficult mitzvahs and the easier mitzvahs, and among the things we say, it's quite astonishing. We say the Jewish people have gone through tribulation after tribulation. Do you really want to join us? And he says that, yeah, he has to say, I want to be Jewish. Even though I understand it's hard and you go through difficulties, I still want to be Jewish. And Rashi says, explains there, he needs to say, halavai, I could be part of these sorrows. And it's a little bit strange, right? The convert already accepted to the mitzvah of the Torah. How do we know? How does Rashi know that there's an additional requirement that he has to be privileged to be part of the tsaras? It almost sounds like masochistic to be part of the tsaras of Klal Yisrael, the tribulations. What do we need the convert to accept the tribulations? What's that all about? Yeah? And based on what we said so far, we can understand this. Yeah? We said about Esav. In order to get a kinyan in Eretz Israel, in order to Jewish people to acquire Eretz Israel and to acquire and to have the Gula, right? We need to go through difficulties. We need to endure the gullus, right? A convert who cannot say that I'm willing to go through the difficulties, so he's not eligible, as it were, to become part of the Jewish people, because he's not going to participate in our quest, as it were, our journey to come to Eretz Israel, right? When Avram was alive, it wasn't possible to inherit the land of Eretz Israel, right? Only when he passed away, right? Then there was a question of inheritance. Who does it go to? Right? This was the big question. Right? The shepherds of Lod were fighting. Who's going to inherit Eretz Israel? So we have two candidates for this. We have Yishmael, and we have Yitzchak, yeah, and Yaakov, and Esav. Yeah, we have three. Actually, we have three possible. We have three possible candidates. We have the sense of Yitzchak. We have the sense of Yishmael. We have the sense of Esav. Yeah. Yishmael had some grasp on the land, and then, like we said, from Mitzvah's Milah, they had some grasp on the land. Yeah, we had some grasp on the land, but not complete. Right. The only nation, and Esav certainly not, they left. The only nation which had a full grasp on the land of Israel is the Jewish people, because we are willing to endure the suffering of the exile. And therefore, we have a grasp. We are privileged as a Jewish people. We will be privileged, and we are privileged to have a grasp of Eretz Israel. The land of Eretz Israel is suffering now. The land of Eretz Israel is suffering, right? And this is what the Torah tells us. But later on, the Torah says, I'll remember the bris of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and I'll remember the land. Yeah, the land is also suffering, because as long as Yishmael still exists and has some grasp on Eretz Israel through the mitzvah of Milah, so the land is not suffering, because the land wants to be solely connected to the Jewish people, right? Solely connected to the Jewish people. The pasuk tells us Sion will be redeemed with Mishpat. Sion v'Mishpat tipad, right? Sion doesn't refer to Klal Yisrael; it refers to Eretz Israel, right? When the Gula comes, not only the Jewish people will be redeemed, but the land will also be redeemed. And this is what the Baal HaTorah means. You can understand the Baal HaTorah. When the Gula comes, and we're freed from the hands of Edom, the redemption won't be complete. Only when the land is freed from the hands of Yishmael will the Gula be actualized. And this is one of the biggest tribulations that the Jewish people are going through daily, right? Daily, if not weekly, if not monthly. An incident doesn't happen where the Jewish people are attacked because of the dispute of the land. Yeah? And this is a great thorn in the side, of the Jewish people. And it cannot end. The Baal HaTorah is saying it cannot end, right, until Yishmael falls. As strong as Yishmael is still around, and as long as an hour as the morning prayers start, if you listen carefully, you hear the call to prayer of Yishmael. As long as Yishmael is still in the land of Israel, and they have some grasp on the land, yeah, the Gula can't happen. The Gula will only come, the redemption, the Moshiach will only come when the grasp of Yishmael is released, and then then the Gula can come, and then the Gula can be actualized. And this is why when the Torah mentions the bris with Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, it mentions the land last, because that's the last step. The last step is after the Golus Edom is finished, and after Yishmael falls, only then will the land be freed from the grasp of Yishmael, and will the redemption come. We find at the end of Makos a very powerful Gemara. Mentioned this Gemara many times, that when the sages saw a fox after the destruction of the base of English, when the sages saw a fox coming out the Kodesh HaKodashim, they cried. And the question is, they saw the Chorban, they saw the destruction right here. Why didn't they cry beforehand? Yeah? What do you need the foxes for? We can understand that they cried because every single detail of the Chorban, every single detail of the destruction of the base of English is a reason to cry. When they saw the foxes coming out, they cried additional crying, even more. But Rabbi Kiva had a different approach. He had an opposite approach. He saw that just as every detail of the Gullus had been fulfilled, of the diaspora, of the Gullus, the Korban of the base, the destruction of the temple, every detail of the Gula would be filled. Instead of crying, he laughed out of joy. So based on this, we can understand, we can put everything together. Right now, the Jewish people are in a difficult time. On one hand, we're under almost 2,000 years under the domination of the nation of Edom, which our sages tell us that the domination now of the Jewish people is under the rule of Edom, the philosophy, the lifestyle, the world outlook today of the ruling powers of the world is Edom, some of them, and the other ones are Yishmael. Right? These are the two dominant powers today as we come to the end of the Gullus, or Edom and Yishmael. Edom has a powerful grasp on our minds, yeah, and our philosophy and our world outlook, right? And we have to break out of that, right, if we want the Gula to come. But there's a second stage, right, after we get out of Edom, is to redeem the land from Yishmael, right? Is to get enough merit that we can become the true and complete inheritance of the land of Israel, and in doing so, merit to have complete domination on the land of Israel. And when that day comes, that will be the fall of Yishmael, and that will be the rise of Klal Yisrael. And this is what the Baal Term is telling us, right? That this is the harbinger of the final redemption, is the weakening of Yishmael's hand in Eretz Israel, and the uprising going into Yaakov's hands, and from that time, Moshiach will sprout forth, right? And we see this happening today. We see it weekly. Those of us living here in Eretz Israel, daily, weekly. We just this Shabbos passed by the 8th anniversary of the Har Nof massacre, and we see how the children of Yishmael are trying their best to get a full grasp here in the land of Israel, right? And the Torah tells us they won't be successful. The Torah tells us at the end of days that Yishmael will fall, and that Yitzchak, his descendants, will be the true inheritance of the land, and then Moshiach will sprout forth from this. So let us hope and pray that we'll merit to see the release of the land of Israel from Yishmael's hands, and the day will come when, just like Rabbi Kiva laughed when he saw this very korban that we're seeing right now, that we also will be able to laugh. Az Yamal Yitzchok Pinu, our mouths will be filled with laughter. The death of every tzaddik is tragic, and certainly the death of our Fievel Cohen is a great loss to Klal Yisrael, especially those who are training who have aspirations to be poskim and benefited so much. In the call yesterday, I said anybody who is learning the Fievel Cohen Sefer, right? You go through a sugya, you go through Shonim, you go through the poskim, the achronim, Torah, Beis Yosef, Shulchan Aruch, and you want to see what Fievel Cohen Zatzal said, because it's going to give you a clarity in the Maskan of the Sugya, right? They said everyone is obligated to go to the Levi, and it was a very big quote Shamayim the Rav said no hespedim. He didn't want any covet in this world. And Rav Fievel Cohen was a tzaddik, a Rav of dignity and eloquence. Right? When you saw him, you saw a true product of godless and of greatness in Torah. And we should certainly emulate his ways and do everything we can to fulfill these beautiful words that he said 13 years ago, that strengthen ourselves in Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael, which means coming here to live, which means strengthening ourselves in mitzvahs bris milah, which means, as the Chasim Sofer says, doing whatever we can to build the Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. If someone's in Chutz La'aretz and he donates money to help the Yeshiva here in Eretz Yisrael, he fulfills, says the Chasim Sofer, the mitzvah Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael by helping building it up and helping the Jewish people strengthening their presence here in Eretz Yisrael, so we can see the day when in the base of Migdash we're not hearing the call to prayer of Ishmael, but we're hearing the beautiful songs of the Levium and the Avod of the Kohanim and the Maimadim of the Israelim, and this area will be filled with Jewish people coming to offer their sacrifices. Amen. Kain Tia Ratzon.